And if he's smart enough to steal $16 million, he's adult enough to face the legal consequences. Still, this was a difficult decision, and they wanted to give him one last chance. Maybe he should be given a bit more time to consider the true magnitude of the situation. After all, if law enforcement got involved, the consequences on his life could be devastating. In a final attempt to provide him a way out, Dylan messaged Andy on his personal phone number, stating once again that he's been identified and will be reported to law enforcement unless he gives the money back. And his response? At this point, any debates over the ethical implications were over. The team published the final blog post, hired a lawyer, and contacted the police. While the team was busy investigating the case, Andy was busy trolling on Twitter. He wrote a poem and taunted the team for their response. He called what he did arbitrage and claimed that users were simply outtraded. In the end, he said he was looking for the most elite crypto lawyers. While Andy clearly stole money from Indexed, the legal implications are uncertain. This is because Indexed itself was never technically hacked. Indexed is just a set of smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. Think of it like a global computer where you can program stuff. But these smart contracts aren't so smart, as they execute everything strictly to what the code says. In this case, Andy was not breaking any of the smart contract's rules. He only manipulated them in a way to achieve an outcome nobody expected. I'll make another video explaining exactly how the hack worked, but to summarize, Andy used $157 million in flash loans to artificially manipulate prices. This tricked the smart contract to think the index fund was 380 times cheaper than it should be. Finally, he bought a ton of these index funds at this price and redeemed them to drain nearly all the underlying tokens. Dylan was aware that this could be a possible pathway for attacks. He spent at least 2 weeks looking into it, but couldn't find any errors, nor could 2 security researchers he paid to examine the code. Unfortunately, if you don't find the bug, someone else will, and then you're at their mercy for whatever they decide to do. Andy believes what he did was perfectly legal. It wasn't a hack, but rather a complex series of transactions that exploited the operational logic of the smart contracts. This is the idea of code is law. However, this is a relatively controversial doctrine within the crypto community. Most people on Ethereum will argue that code isn't law, law is law. In that case, Andy would have violated statutes against market manipulation and computer hacking. Whatever he did is definitely unethical. The people that were affected by this were only trying to diversify risk using index funds. Nobody deserves to have their money whisked away. Nearly 2 months after the attack, Index filed a lawsuit. However, they learned they weren't the first to do so. An anonymous company called Cicada137 had already sued Andy. According to the complaint, Cicada represents the largest token holder who lost about $9 million in the attack. Cicada had already obtained an order freezing the disputed tokens. They also got an order to search his parents' house. But when the search was executed, Andy had already left, taking his computer with him. His parents and younger brother said they didn't know where he was. A week later, Andy appeared at a virtual hearing on Zoom. His camera was off and he barely spoke. The judge ordered him to either transfer the disputed assets to a neutral third party or to appear in court the following week. When the deadline arrived, he hadn't done either. The judge issued a warrant for his arrest. A lawyer for Cicada says there's good reason to believe Andy has fled the country. The case is now incomplete until authorities can locate him. Without him or his tokens, it's impossible to have the case moving. I reached out to Andy using his email, and I didn't expect him to actually reply. He said he could answer my questions. I first asked if he was concerned about being identified and why he didn't take precautions to conceal his identity. When he started contacting Indexed, he did not know about the exploit, so he didn't bother to set up a burner Discord. He also had a very strict window to execute the exploit. This explains why he didn't wait long enough for Tornado Cash. Now that he has been identified, he's thinking of leaving for places with more freedom, although he obviously won't say where. His day-to-day life hasn't really changed too much. Sitting in front of a computer screen in Canada is not that different from sitting in front of a computer screen in the Arctic Circle. I asked him what he plans on doing with the tokens. He says it's nice not having to worry about food and rent and basic things anymore, but really, he thinks that spending money is a waste. Finally, I asked him why he didn't show up to court. His lawyer says he shouldn't respond. For now, those who held certain index funds ended up with huge losses. Since the hack, the platform has never recovered. Dylan admits that nobody really has the same drive to work on the project after all that's happened. Meanwhile, Andy says he's not concerned about getting a job. Waging in the cage is not his idea of a good life. Andy will certainly never have to worry about money again, but he can never live quite a normal life. It almost seems like this is what he wanted from the start. Oh, by the way, remember how Andy custom generated his address to start with 0x based? Well, the tool he used got hacked and some hacker ended up stealing $1.3 million from him.